Hello and welcome. Cody Porter Sports Show, episode number 2, 26th of October. Halloween is coming. Happy holidays. Let's get right into it. College football. I didn't have my picks in front of me last week from the season. If you don't believe the numbers I'm going to tell you, you can go back on my TikTok and look. Pick games every single week. Straight up picks this year, 36 and 21, pretty good. Against the spread, pretty terrible, 19 and 38. But most important number, 36 and 21, straight up picks. I think it's a pretty good number. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Oklahoma, 6th ranked team in the country, going to Kansas as 10-point favorites. Biggest story, this one's going to be will or will not, or won't, or wasn't. Will Jalen Daniels play? Coach Lance Leipold has not announced yet whether he will play or not. Jason Bean has played well in Daniels' absence. He's gone for 913 yards and 9 touchdowns, but Daniels has been out since week 4, since aggravating his back injury against BYU. Both of these teams have good offenses. Oklahoma survived a scare last week against UCF by stopping a 2-point conversion. Kansas started the year off great, 4-0, has 1-2 since with losses to Texas and Oklahoma State. Like I said, both offenses very good, but the defenses. Oklahoma, top 15 in scoring, yards allowed, top 50. Kansas scoring defense, 82nd, yards allowed, 94th. If Jalen Daniels plays, Kansas gets a shot. They straight up have a shot. If Daniels plays, he's that good. But without Daniels and Oklahoma being 6-1 against the spread, with the massive difference in the defenses, I got to take Oklahoma at -10 on the road. Going into game number 2, number 20 Duke, going to number 18 Louisville. Louisville, 4.5-point favorites. Now, if you say Louisville or Louisville, do the people from Kentucky say Louisville? I think that's... If you say Louisville, I feel like that's kind of weird. Louisville, it kind of makes more sense. Louisville, I think I just said it wrong in my own head. Louisville, 6-1, beat Notre Dame by 13, but lost to Pittsburgh by 17. Kind of wacky. And then Duke, 5-2, losses to Notre Dame and Florida State. Last week I said if Riley Leonard plays, Duke's got a shot. And he played well, and Duke was up most of the game. And then Leonard goes out, and Florida State pulls away with it in the second half. Leonard apparently was running up and down the sidelines all last week trying to convince his coach that he was ready to play, but they did not put him in. All in all, if Riley Leonard plays, he'll still probably be hobbled, but he is a much better option than their backup, Henry Bellin. So far this year, Bellin 13 of 26. If Henry Bellin plays, that means Louisville wins. If Riley Leonard plays, and he can play just as good, even as good, he wasn't 100% in the Florida State game before he re-injured himself last week, but if he plays as good as he was to start that game, I think Duke's got a shot. But for the time being, Leonard being out, I like Louisville at 4.5. Jake Plummer's played great, or not Jack. Jack Plummer, not Jake Plummer. Jake Plummer, his dad, or his brother or something. Jack Plummer, 1,900 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, has had a good year. Like I said, if Leonard plays, Duke's got a chance, and I like Duke. But as of the time being, him not playing, Bellin playing, I like Louisville as 4.5-point home favorites. Then Michigan State, Minnesota. The only reason I'm talking about this game is because it is hilarious. Last week, Minnesota played Iowa in the lowest set over-under in college football ever. It was at 30.5 points. The final score was 10-12. It went under by 8.5 points. And Minnesota should have lost that game. Iowa returned a punt for a touchdown, very obviously. It went to review to see if he stepped out of bounds, and then the referees, after review, said that he called for a fair catch. I didn't even know that was possible. So they overturned the punt return touchdown, took it off the board. Iowa doesn't score. It ends up being a 10-12 game. Minnesota should have lost that game. Crazy game. And why it's funny on the other side, Michigan State, if you don't know, you can probably just go on Google and type in Michigan State scoreboard, and you will see what I'm talking about. They lost to Michigan last week, 49-0, and nobody cared. That's my backdrop starting to fall off the wall. Nobody cared that they lost 49-0 because on the Jumbotron, on the scoreboard for Michigan State, they had a little trivia game. And one of the trivia questions is, where is this person from? And do you know who the person that Michigan State put on the scoreboard was? It was Adolf Hitler. That is who Michigan State put on their Jumbotron last week. So these two teams are terrible. But this just really funny happenings to them last week in their programs. Minnesota's a 7-point favorite at home. Michigan State sucks, much worse than Minnesota. I like Minnesota -7. Didn't really do a whole lot of research on that one. I just know what happened in those games. I'm going to take a brief intermission here to fix my background as well. Now you might ask yourself, why did you have to cut it and fix it? Why didn't you just fix it and restart? Well, because it's 2:40 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and the first 3 times I started this, I got about 2 minutes in and they fell 3 times. So I am hoping at this point that they don't fall again. But let's keep on going. Nonetheless, my favorite game of the week, the most important game of the weekend, I do believe, Georgia at Florida, the 100th version of the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville, Florida. Best rivalry game name, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Just makes you want to go be a part of that rivalry. Number 1, Georgia is 14.5. 2 touchdown favorites, as Florida will be the home team this year in Jacksonville. Both teams coming off of a bye. Georgia, 7-0. Defending 2-time national champions. Florida, 5-2. What's the story here? It's a 2-touchdown game. Number 1 versus unranked. It's a rivalry game. Rivalry games are different. Doesn't matter how good or how bad the teams are. Rivalry games are different. 14.5-point favorites. Florida, quarterback, Graham Mertz. Everyone talked about how terrible he was at Wisconsin, how he would be terrible in the SEC. Well, think again. 76% completion percentage. He had his best game ever in his last game against South Carolina. Threw for 423 yards in 3 touchdowns. Graham Mertz is on fire in the SEC, and his numbers, just passing, if you just look up the numbers, they go hand in hand with Jordan Travis. And I'm not saying anything about who they are right now. I'm just saying, coming into the season, Jordan Travis was the Heisman favorite, top 5 in Heisman preseason polls, and Graham Mertz was going to be the worst quarterback in the SEC. So let's go ahead and rethink that next time. All right, I think we should do that. Georgia, schedule this year. They blew out UAB, UT Martin, Ball State, and they're supposed to do that. But what they did in all 3 of those games is they struggled. Struggled in at least one quarter, and even against UAB, I think it was Ball State, one or the other, struggled in the first 2 quarters. Didn't really have to do anything in 2 quarters. Eventually they come out. They're the better team, the more experienced team, the better overall players. They're going to come out and beat those programs. But they struggled for 1 to 2 quarters. They played South Carolina and Auburn very close. I think if you watched Georgia play this year, you know there's a very tall task that they will go undefeated again. In a row, they got Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. They're dropping one of those, for sure. For sure. And I think could be this weekend. Injuries. Florida, none of note. They've gotten healthier. Kingsley Ekugon back. In Georgia, Brock Bowers out 4 to 6 weeks. High ankle sprain surgery. Plus, they got some questions on the offensive line in the backfield. Kirby Smart said he was hopeful for all those players, but has not made a designation on any of them. Brock Bowers being out is huge. I think that is worth at least 3 or 4 points in the spread and worth all of my confidence in what Florida could do in this game. But Bowers is out. I have supreme confidence in the savior of the 2023 Florida football season, Graham Mertz. Montrell Johnson is great on the ground. Trevor Etienne, fantastic on the ground. 2-headed monster in the backfield with Mertz slinging it all over the field. But Georgia, let's be honest, 2-time defending national champs. Undefeated. They've won like 25 straight games. It doesn't matter. The winner of this year's world's largest outdoor cocktail party, may have had a bad word in there. The winner of the 100th annual world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville, Florida, will be the Florida Gators. Hate to break it to you, but they're winning this game. Would I bet on Florida money line? Probably not, but you get good odds if you think they're going to win. I will bet on Florida at plus 14.5. Those are my official picks in that game. Florida plus 14.5, and Florida to win. Let's move on from there. Oregon at Utah. Oregon 6.5-point favorites on the road at Utah. Utah coming over a massive win, 34-32 at USC. The biggest news that came out of last week is Cam Rising officially out for the year. But last week it didn't seem to matter as on the ground, they rush for 275 yards. Jaquindon Jackson for Utah, when he's had double-digit carries this season, only in 3 games. He's only had double-digit carries in 3 games. When he does have double-digit carries, 94 yards, 117 yards, 129 yards. Jaquindon Jackson is great on the ground. But how will they compare to Oregon? Oregon, only 1 loss at Washington by 3. Oregon's rush defense, 11th in the country. And you can say, well, that's probably because they're up on a lot of teams because they have the number 2 offense in America behind only LSU. You could say there's a reason that they have such a highly ranked rush defense. They only allow 3.2 yards per carry regardless. So against the spread, both these teams play fairly even. Oregon is 5-1-1. Utah's 4-2-1. Utah's at home after a massive win. Kyle Whittingham, their coach, is just fantastic. What he did last week with subbing D lineman was just fantastic and really just kind of proved Caleb Williams isn't built for the spotlight. At least not yet. He could be in the future. At least not yet. This one's hard to pick for me. I didn't even make a pick as I was doing my research, but I'm looking at it right now. And the way that Utah wins this game is by running the ball effectively, and I just don't know if they will do that against Oregon's defense. And I know Oregon's offense is really, really good. They even scored on Washington. USC's defense is really good. They proved that last week. Utah's defense is really good. They proved that last week against USC. But overall, I'm going to take Oregon at 6.5-point favorites. I think they win by a touchdown and a PAT in this one. Moving on, Tennessee at Kentucky. Tennessee, 21st ranked team in the country, 3.5-point favorites. Just looking at this without looking at any stats, I kind of like Kentucky. Kroger Field is electric. Ray Davis is great, but let's dig into the numbers a little bit. Kentucky started the year at 5-0, and they have losses to Georgia and Missouri back-to-back by combined scores 89-34. Not great. Tennessee's 5-2 with losses to UF and Alabama, but they look good in wins in conference against South Carolina and Texas A&M. I think the biggest story of Kentucky this year, besides Ray Davis, is that Devin Leary has struggled mightily. 3 games in a row, he's thrown for under 130 pass yards, and I think that will decide the outcome of this weekend's game. Because Ray Davis dominated against UF and Missouri with 408 total yards. Against Georgia, a great run defense, he had 15 carries for 59 yards. Tennessee's defense, the top 25 run defense. When you have a quarterback who hasn't thrown for 130 yards in 3 straight games, you're going to sell it for the run, especially when the running back is Ray Davis, and you know what he can do on the ground. Joe Milton's coming off one of his best games of the year, had over 300 total yards against Alabama. I think the best bet in this game is just the under. 51.5 is the over-under, and I think that under is a mighty fine number to bet on if you're a gambling man. But Tennessee, 3.5-point favorites on the road with that defense and just Devin Leary just not being able to figure it out, especially against these good SEC defenses. I like Tennessee as 3.5-point favorites. Now, moving on from football. Week 1, all I did was football, college, NFL. Moving on, baseball. We got the World Series. Starts tomorrow. Arizona Diamondbacks, Texas Rangers. 2 teams that did not have buys in the wild card round. And I think MLB is really going to take a look at that. I think the wild card round as it's set up right now is just not set up to really actually give those teams with buys advantages. Being off for 5 days, 7 days in baseball in the playoffs really isn't an advantage. If you're off for 3 days, you get your rotation rested, that's an advantage. But with the new 3-game series they have, or not new, but 2 years now, 3-game series they have in the wild card, it puts the 1 and 2 seeds off for 5 to 7 days. And that just, these teams, if they play 2 or 3 games in the wild card round, they're ready to go. They're playing postseason baseball. They're in the postseason atmosphere. They know what they're doing. Whereas you get a team on 5-6 days rest, even if they are the better team over the course of the season, baseball, 162 games, if there's a difference in 5 or 6 wins, those teams are basically the same. If there's teams got 95 and teams got 90, they're the same team when it's all said and done. And you give one team some momentum and not as much rest, and you give the other team more rest but zero momentum, ice cold, I think it is, and I think me just swinging this microphone over here and the volume not changing, you can tell this is not plugged into anything. It's just a prop, if you will. But like I said, I think the wild card round is just wrong. I think you should go back to the 1 game. It was really wild, wild card round. I think one game to decide it all, I think, is the best way to do the wild card round and really gives those teams with buys advantages over the wild card teams. But moving on from that, let's just get into the series. The odds on the series, the Rangers are minus 174 favorites to win it all, with Arizona as 148 plus 148 underdogs to win the World Series. The odds to win by games, the lowest odds at plus 390 is the Rangers in 6, then the Rangers in 7 at plus 410, then the Rangers at 5 in plus 520, followed by the Diamondbacks in 7 games at plus 570. And you come into this one, the Rangers weren't a 1 and 2 seed. Obviously, they lose to Grom during the season. They trade for Max Scherzer. But the star power is on their side. The payroll's on their side. They got Nathan Eovaldi. They got Max Scherzer. They got Jordan Montgomery. They got Aroldis Chapman. They got Corey Seager. They got Adolis Garcia. They got Marcus Semien. They got the bats. They got the arms. They paid for them. They have the names to win postseason baseball. Then you got the Diamondbacks. No one picked them to win. Mad Dog Russo said that if the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies in 7 games, he would quit from TV, and which would have been great if he would have followed through on that one. But he said that he was lying after the fact when the Diamondbacks did beat the Phillies after just a terribly, terribly cold set of games from Castellanos, Harper, Schwarber. They just could not hit it all in Game 6 and 7, and that was the deciding factor in that series. But they have young talent and homegrown talent. Corbin Carroll, Gabe Moreno, Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, Brandon Pfaadt. They've all played fantastic in this postseason, and it's really just the difference in how the two teams are currently constructed. Let's break down some of their postseason stats. Adolis Garcia, 7 homers, 20 RBIs, just killed the Astros. Corey Seager's hitting .333 with 29 total bases. Josh Jung, 27 total bases. Evan Carter's hitting .308. Mitch Garver and Jonah Heim, the catchers, combined 17 RBIs, 36 total bases. Sometimes, most teams, catcher, you're expecting the least offensive production, and they're doing the exact opposite. Their catchers are contributing in and out for the Rangers. Then you go to the Diamondbacks. Gallen and Kelly each have 2 wins. Gallen struggled a little bit. His ERA is a little over 5, but, it's postseason baseball. It's going to happen. He still got 2 wins. He still kept his teams in the games when he's pitched. And Merrill Kelly's had a great postseason as well. Brandon Pfaadt, spelled like P-F-A-A-D-T, Pfaadt. He's had a fantastic playoffs. He's a rookie. 16 2/3 innings, a 2.7 ERA, a 1.08 WHIP, 11.9 strikeouts per 9. Brandon Pfaadt is pitching his tail off here in his first ever postseason in his first season. And so, Gallen, Kelly, and Pfaadt's going to go up, and they're really going to compete with Scherzer and Montgomery and Eovaldi. Their bullpen, fantastic. Their top 3 relievers this postseason: Ryan Thompson, Kevin Ginkel, Paul Sewell. 27 2/3 innings pitched. If you didn't know, that's a whole baseball game, and then a whole baseball game, and then another whole baseball game. That's 3 baseball games. They've given up 3 runs. Those 3 from the bullpen. They are electric. They will play a big role, especially because Brandon Pfaadt's not really pitched a whole lot of innings in this postseason, but when he has pitched, he's pitched really well. You look at those 3 guys to work a lot of innings in the World Series if the Diamondbacks are going to win this one. On offense, they've really spread it around. 6 RBIs from Moreno, Carroll, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Alec Thomas. All of them, 6 RBIs or more each. And the only big story left out of that list is former Tampa Bay Ray, Evan Longoria. 15 years in between World Series appearances. I think it's the 3rd or 4th longest in MLB history wait time in between 2 World Series. So we just look at it, tail of the tape. Who do I think is going to win this one? In all honesty, I do think it is the Rangers. They have home field advantage. Big names don't always matter. Sometimes the hottest team wins. The team that has the most momentum, the team that plays the best at home. But I do think, Adolis Garcia, the hottest hitter in baseball in the postseason right now. He can't miss a baseball, and when he hits it, it goes far. Scherzer had a bad first game against the Astros, but pitched well in Game 7, or pitched better in Game 7. Eovaldi, Jordan Montgomery's pitched well all postseason. I think when it comes down to it, experience in the postseason and experience overall is going to go in favor of the Rangers winning this World Series. I think it'll be a very good World Series. I think no one really picked it. I saw a guy on FanDuel put in a futures bet in like July, Diamondbacks and Rangers to be in the World Series, $25 to make $4,700 or $47,000 or something. No one really expected these teams. I mean, if you look at the Rangers early on, when DeGrom was healthy, you thought this team had a chance, and then DeGrom goes down, you don't know. They bring in Scherzer, he gets hurt, he's activated for the ALCS. Rangers are in it. Diamondbacks, great year with a bunch of young talent. They're in the World Series. Probably, if they keep this core group together, you'll see them here again in the not so far future. But I like the Rangers to win this one in probably 6 games. I think Arizona will get 2. But I think overall the Rangers are going to overpower them in this one. So if we go back to college football, just wrap up to get my picks in. I got Oklahoma and Oklahoma -10. I got Louisville -4.5. Again, if Riley Leonard plays, I really think Duke wins that one. I'm just not sure he will. Then Michigan State, Minnesota. Like I said, no research. Don't know anything about those two teams except that they had hilarious weeks last week. I took Minnesota -7. Don't really care about that one. Then Georgia, Florida. 100th annual world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I got Florida +14.5 and to win. Utah, Oregon. I got Oregon at 6.5-point favorites. I got all favorites this week. Boo-hoo. Tennessee, Kentucky, 3.5-point favorites. I like Tennessee. I really liked Kentucky. I liked Utah looking at it early going in, but looking at the numbers, looking at the stats, that's who I like. My background's about to fall off. Oh, well, who cares? That's week number 2, episode number 2 of the Cody Porter Sports Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope to get you back next week.